just say this right here, right now. All right. In defense of Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor performance and depiction in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, I see a lot of people say that they hate his Lex Luthor because he's not comic book Lex Luthor. He's not classic Lex Luthor. Although the problem with that statement is that Lex Luthor throughout the comics in his 80-year history is not a consistent character at all. Lex Luthor is a figurehead who is used to represent some sort of major social or political fear that we as Americans, or just people in the Western world, but like specifically Americans, are like deeply afraid of at that point in time. So when he was first created in the 40s, he was a war profiteer because that was a big problem during World War II. There were a lot of people who were leading cults and, you know, starting these like scorched earth campaigns, like, hell yeah, burn it all down so we can start something new. That was a big problem in the 1940s. So that's what Lex Luthor represented. And then Lex Luthor became a gangster because, you know, we started to see the rise of, you know, gangs and organized crime in American cities. And then, you know, post-war, we get to the 50s and the 60s, we're in the atomic age. The bomb has just been dropped. And the weird thing about war is that war always brings out the worst in us, and we know that. We know that. We're deeply aware of that. But I don't think it became that evident. Or I don't think it became as viscerally evident until the bomb was dropped. Like, now we have created the ultimate death machine. We can take millions of lives just like that. So now we have this whole fear in our minds of science and progress because we're afraid that technologically we've reached a point beyond our understanding or beyond our maturity. And that's what Silver Age Lex Luthor represents. He represents the mad scientist. He represents science gone wrong or science gone too far. And then you get the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor from the Donner films, and he's not a land shark, but like he represents real estate gone awry, which was a big problem in the 70s, specifically in America. But I don't want to say specifically in America. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but I know in America, there was a big problem with, you know, or I guess we started to take notice of the problem of people buying like copious amounts of land, you know, and pushing people out of their homes, and you know, using that land to build resorts and shit like that. But it was like fucking up a lot of like everyday people's lives. So that's what Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor represents. And then we get into the 80s with John Byrne. We're in like prime like punk rock territory, you know. In a way, we've kind of gone back to you know, what a lot of these Golden Age stories were kind of about, where Lex Luthor now represents the establishment. You know, Lex Luthor represents Gordon Gekko. He represents all the various like wolves of Wall Street. You know, these white collar criminals who make themselves richer off the back of poor people who just keep getting poorer and poorer. And that's what Superman is fighting against, you know, because that's what we're afraid of at that time period. And then you get into the 2000s, and that's like the Bush administration, and everyone's really mad about George Bush being president. And Lex Luthor then kind of takes this turn as being a a political figure, because we're now all of a sudden afraid of our, well, not all of a sudden, but like now we're really afraid of our political leaders at this time period. So when we get to Jesse Eisenberg, you know, who I feel is the next kind of, that is the next, or I guess current fear that we as like a social consciousness in America and maybe the world, although I don't want to say the world because I'm speaking from an American bias and an American perspective, but Jesse Eisenberg, his version of Lex Luthor represents, like fucking, what's his name, Facebook guy, Lizard Man, Mark Zuckerberg, he represents Elon Musk, like Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor represents the not white collar, the cotton collar billionaires, the millennial billionaires who got a bunch of money from mommy and daddy and are now more or less running the world because they have more power and influence than several nations combined, and they don't give a shit how many people they kill to get their way, or not kill, but like, stomp on to get their way. And that's what Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor represents, which I think is perfectly fine and valid, because Lex Luthor as a character is always about representing what we as a population are afraid of. And yeah, that was my long ass tangent about why I thought Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor was pretty good and a valid take on the character.